Yeah, there are parents who are considering quitting their job or reducing their hours because childcare is just too expensive.
Chocolate increased anywhere from 8 to 15%, and it doesn't look like it's going down any.
Here at home, inflation sticker shock is hitting millions of Americans hard. Families forced to cut back on just about everything.
Still heading in the right direction, and that could help convince the Federal Reserve to pause on additional rate hikes next month.
You know, it's no secret that childcare costs across the city are really through the roof. I mean,
to be working and also paying for childcare, and that could cost families on average $9 billion.
Hard to afford childcare. Most families in New York City are unable to pay for childcare, according to a recent research. It coincides with rising rents that force some families to leave the city and have a significant negative effect on the economy. Carolyn Deller, a native of the Bronx, says she quit her work to care for her 4-year-old son Luca because daycare was too expensive. It's highly costly. The reason I'm a stay-at-home mother, the woman uttered. It was roughly $475 every week. That's essentially our rent. According to a recent analysis by the public policy think tank 5 Borough Institute, the average daycare facility costs at least $20,000 annually. Furthermore, even for one child, more than 80% of families cannot afford that. Being a mother of 4, Tiffany Castillo stays at home. My husband, really? He's working 2 jobs, she replied. According to Grace Rowe, executive producer of the 5 Borough Institute, parents who left the workforce or who had to downshift their careers to take care of children's needs are expected to have cost New York City $23 billion in missed economic activity in 2022. Black and Latinx families are the most affected, according to the survey, she claims, with some now being compelled to flee the city. They're sort of finding other employment or taking on 2 jobs.
Growing concerns about exactly how the child care affordability dilemma may worsen as soon as next month.
It's very expensive to raise a child in the U.S.
Yeah, there are parents who are considering quitting their job or reducing their hours because childcare is just too expensive.
You know, it's no secret that childcare costs across the city are really through the roof. I mean,
that's pretty much what happens, and it's fairly common at this point. Or they relocated to a less expensive place, a child care provider told CBS New York. Although she claims to see parents struggling, she also claims that daycare providers are having difficulty making ends meet. Families can't afford to pay higher fees, and these child care providers can barely afford to keep their lights on in many cases, Rowe stated. Only 50% of families can currently access licensed facilities. This is a significant drop in the number of child care providers available due to increased expenses. The report makes suggestions and urges the city to enact new laws that will assist daycare providers and families. We actually have a large number of families who are eligible for child care subsidies, but they aren't accessing them, Rose stated. According to Mayor Eric Adams, his government is addressing it. More needs to be done. We've concentrated on childcare since it's one of the biggest barriers preventing women from entering the workforce, according to Adams. Furthermore, providing the next generation with high-quality care is essential to the city's future. The study also discovered that despite 780,000 parents in New York City working between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., only 5% of certified daycare centers are open during that time. Mayor Adams faces backlash. Mayor Adams' proposed $250 million cuts to preschool programs and youth services are expected to drive more working-class families out of New York City, according to a letter from a coalition of over 100 organizations obtained by the Daily News. Nearly 8 in 10 families cannot afford to pay for childcare or after-school programs, according to the Citizens Committee for Children of New York, part of the Campaign for Children. Advocates say further reductions will only make the situation dire. The warning comes amid growing concern over the affordability of the city for middle and lower income families. Fears over the cost of living in the city, including childcare and other factors such as record high rents, have been growing as a clearer picture emerges of who left during the public health crisis. While the city's population of wealthier households returned to pre-pandemic levels by 2022 after many fled during its peak, those with lower incomes haven't rebounded in the same way. A recent state comptroller report found people that moved out of the city that year had a median wage of $49,000, or 18% lower than the year before. Adams has defended the cuts to preschool programs as necessary with the loss of federal pandemic aid. He said that the demand for 3K in some neighborhoods doesn't match up with available seats in that area. The local Department of Education warns on its own website that due to limited seats, not all children will receive a 3K offer in half of the city's 32 geographic school districts, mostly in Brooklyn and Queens. Advocates are pushing for changes that they say will make the process of applying for care less difficult and time-consuming, and ultimately fill those seats like they did in universal pre-kindergarten programs. Adams last year directed all city agencies to find savings in response to the ballooning costs of caring for migrants. But some advocates say that funding early childhood and youth program in time will pay for themselves, helping migrants integrate into the fabric of the city and longtime New Yorkers avoid more costly services down the road. Adams on public radio Monday also discovered that his administration has cut subsidized childcare costs from $55 a week down to less than $5 a week. So we're very much in line with making sure that we can make childcare affordable, said Adams. Mayoral spokeswoman Mars Cockfield defended the cut, stating that due to measured, responsible fiscal management and better-than-expected tax revenue, the budget was balanced in January and made critical investments in schools and summer programming for young people.
Dashed hopes that inflation had officially peaked and was on its way down. Instead,
child care can range anywhere from $1,000 a month, or somewhere it could be like as paying as like a double rent.
To be working and also paying for childcare, and that could cost families on average $9 billion.
Chocolate increased anywhere from 8 to 15%, and it doesn't look like it's going down any.
Inflation on American families. Grocery prices in America have significantly increased, with families now paying 25% more than before the pandemic. This report examines how grocery price inflation has affected different income groups and identifies key items driving price increases. The Biden administration has taken steps to offset the financial impacts of higher grocery prices on lower-income families and address some of the root causes of recent price increases. Grocery prices have risen faster than the rate of inflation since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, contributing to a 45% jump in food insecurity between 2021 and 2022. However, over the last year, grocery prices have largely plateaued. Some staples, such as eggs and lettuce, have come down from peak prices in 2022, providing relief for families. The burden of higher grocery prices isn't borne equally across the income spectrum.
We start with the increase in the price of goods Americans buy and how much you can buy with an American dollar.
Here at home, inflation sticker shock is hitting millions of Americans hard. Families forced to cut back on just about everything.
The highest inflation rate in more than 40 years is pushing many Americans past their financial limits.
In 2022, consumers in the bottom quintile of the income spectrum spent 25% of their income on groceries, while those in the highest quintile spent under 3.5%. Around the bottom 40% of consumers spend more than 10% of their income on groceries. Global food supply has been significantly affected by various factors, including supply shocks, climate change, and commodity prices. The number of cows raised for beef consumption has decreased since 2020 due to drought conditions, while the avian flu outbreak in the U.S. has caused a significant increase in poultry prices. Juice and non-carbonated beverages have also experienced supply shocks, with domestic orange production down 12% last year. Global sugar prices reached a decade high in fall 2023, largely due to drought conditions caused by El Niño. Climate-related issues and disease outbreaks have negatively affected fruit and vegetable production, with citrus screening disease reducing supply around the world and drought conditions reducing domestic production. Vegetable oil prices have risen by 50% since 2019 due to factors such as Indonesia's temporary ban on palm oil exports, droughts in Argentina and Brazil, and a 35% drop in yields due to drought conditions in Canada. Cocoa supply has declined by 1/3 due to the climate crisis, with cocoa futures doubling since January 2023. Large corporations are in a standoff with regulators, trying to negotiate lower prices while raising prices for consumers and claiming higher input costs. global fertilizer prices reached near record levels in 2022, partly due to Russia's war on Ukraine. Fertilizer accounts for nearly 1/5 of U.S. farm costs and is influenced by Russia and Belarus, which are large global fertilizer suppliers. Energy price increases have also affected fertilizer supply chains, with natural gas prices reducing ammonia production in Europe and coal price increases and electricity rationing in China. Reliance on Russia and China for fertilizer nutrients poses long-term risks to the reliance of fertilizer supply chains. Corporate profiteering has taken advantage of the recent global inflation surge to raise their profit margins, particularly in more concentrated industries. The meat processing industry in the United States is highly concentrated, with 4 companies controlling between 55 and 85% of the market. In 2021 and 2022, wholesale prices in the industry grew much more rapidly than input prices. Beverages have seen input costs increase for beverage producers, but top companies in the beverage industry hiked prices beyond the increase of their input costs to expand their profit margins. Hershey's CEO stated that pricing and productivity gains more than offset inflation and higher manufacturing and overhead costs. Policy considerations to combat the grocery affordability crisis include identifying and addressing anti-competitive and anti-consumer structures and practices in food, retail, meat or poultry, and other agricultural industries, investing in increasing competition and reliance in the meat and poultry supply chains, leveling the playing field in the chicken industry, diversifying food supply chains, and making historic investments in combating climate change through the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA.
The price of nearly everything went up and wages could not keep pace.
Still heading in the right direction. And that could help convince the Federal Reserve to pause on additional rate hikes next month.
And that's going to do it for this video, you guys. See you next time, and bye for now.